All right, Keith. So, who are we talking with today?
This is going to be a great one. This is a conversation with Sundance winner Reid Davenport, who is on the road right now with his film Life After, and sat down with Reid and his producer Colleen Cassingham. They're here in Austin, present Life After on a self-distribution DIY rollout, courtesy of Multitude Films. And so I grabbed these guys.
Yeah, when I say we, I mean you, because unfortunately I wasn't able to join.
You weren't here, and honestly, 4 people is maybe pushing it for this podcast. We're gonna have to find out. But it was a nice little 3-way conversation between me and Reid and Colleen Cassingham. This one is different. We're not walking. We are at our hometown art house theater, the Austin Film Society Cinema. And you'll see in the podcast, we start out in the lobby. It got a little loud, so we busted to the green room. But
so be prepared for some edits, and also a great conversation. I was jealous to miss this one, but thank you for handling it, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Thanks very much. Here's Reid and Colleen.
On your left.
You're listening to Doc Walks with Ben and Keith.
Reid Davenport, Colleen Cassingham here in Austin to present Life After at the Austin Film Society Theater. Ben Steinbauer is not with us today for this episode of Doc Walks. For our audience members who only tune in to see Ben, sorry guys, you don't have any Ben, but you do have these 2 lovely guests and their lovely film Life After, which is doing a national city tour right now. Let's talk a little bit about Life After. Let's talk about life on the road with this movie. Let's talk about this teaming of Reid and Colleen to make this film. How did it start? How do we get going?
Here he is.
Okay, I'm doing that. I am gonna cut. Okay, so the lobby got a little loud. We decided to move the conversation into a quieter spot so that we could all hear ourselves think. You guys could hear us more clearly. And so, continuing with Reid and Colleen in the green room, go. We're trying again up here in the green room. We are back on Doc Walks. We are still at the Austin Film Society Theater, but we are no longer in the lobby. We are up in this
Super secret.
8 foot by 10 foot cell.
We don't know where we are.
He kidnapped us.
Do you know where we are? Come help.
There you go. We're in the green room at the AFS Theater, and as we speak, downstairs, audiences are seeing Life After. Most of them, I assume, for the first time. This is a film that premiered at Sundance, and I'm here with the filmmakers, director Reid Davenport and producer Colleen Cassingham. And Ben is not here because Ben is doing something else. But I am here, and I'm thrilled to be hanging out with these 2 visiting filmmakers here from New York to celebrate this film, which is a powerful film. It's a personal film, and it's a film that I think brings up questions that, to be honest with you, I have never considered. And so there's a lot spinning through my head. So there's a lot I want to talk about. But first, let's start with, where are we right now in the state of the industry, right? Like, putting this film out there, Multitude Films is behind Reid's work here, and you guys are going city to city with this film. Let's just start there. Where have you been and where are you going?
I want to say city to city without a proper distributor. Multitude Films, primarily Colleen has scheduled this 10-city tour. I mean, it's very rare, if ever, that a production company pulls that kind of distribution muscle. But we started in New York City, Inform, went to Philadelphia, Chicago, here, Miami, Atlanta, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland.
Oh, so just like a little jaunt around all the major. Well, I'm glad you finally got to Austin.
Stop 4 of 10.
Is it?
Feeling good.
Yeah, and this film premiered at Sundance.
Yes.
Is the festival run complete at this point with the City Fest, or is it a kind of a hybrid?
Yeah, it's hybrid. We're collapsing windows, really. So we're at the same time that we're doing festivals, continuing to do festivals. We're having this theatrical run that we built from the ground up in the middle of that. We'll continue to do festivals for as long as we keep getting invitations. And yeah, it's I think when we realized that, first of all, we're really lucky to have a public broadcast secured. That's rare, and it's rare, getting rarer, and it's something we don't take for granted. And that this film will have a wide release in the U.S. through a public broadcast. But
Independent lens.
This fall. And so we knew we were building to this fall broadcast. So it's been really exciting to think about, well, what can we build in this time frame? And it's moving really quickly, but it's also building a lot of momentum, which is fun because sometimes the releases of films unspool very slowly over years, and it can be painful, and you think maybe nothing's moving, and then something does happen. But it's really a fun window of time to get to experiment and try new distribution strategies. The theatricals is one of them. We're also pairing it with a virtual screening element to increase accessibility and geographic reach. And yeah, there are lots of things we're trying. So it's exciting.
When I screened the film today, first thing I saw that popped up on the screen is that Independent Lens logo. And I've put out 2 films at Independent Lens, and Lois Vossen knows I will sing her praises to the end of time because I wouldn't have been able to make my biggest film without her. Incredible. And in this moment that we're living in, right, we started out by saying, like, what's the state of the industry? You guys are taking the reins, and Multitude and Reid, that, you guys are all running out there with this film and going city to city in the lead up to your broadcast. How does it feel? How has it felt reading the news about the cuts to public media that have come down the pipe just in the last month? And where are your guys' head on that?
Yeah, it's devastating.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even with this film, it's parallel with the cuts to Medicaid. It's like Medicaid and public TV. It's like it's really hard to do, and really hard to offer any votes of hope right now.
Reid, you once said that you wouldn't have the career you have without public media. I also feel, Multitude Films makes political documentaries, and there are no homes really for real political work other than public media. And it's one of the last remaining anchors for distribution avenues, as we've seen the consolidations and constrictions and everything pulling back from independent work and specifically political work. So it is really frightening to think about how and whether it's still possible. It will still be possible to make political independent work if there are no.
And I think just really quick, it's hard to forget 10 years ago there was this golden age of documentary where the streamers were buying up awesome independent political films, and I think it's horrible people outside of the industry to realize that that's not happening anymore. It's either true crime or celebrities, or there's really no place. Public television has literally cropped up independent filmmaking for the past 5 years, and without public television, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah. Well, that's very well put, and it's so brave. I know. I ask. Yeah. I want to. I just keep asking, hoping someone will have an answer that gives a light to the future and shines path. But you're absolutely right. And like you said, coupling that with the cuts to Medicaid, it's a sobering moment. And yet at the same time, I feel like storytelling, the likes of which you're making, is more important now than ever. And so, well, before we get any further, let me just say kudos to Multitude for figuring out, like Reid said, it's rare to have a production company put that much muscle into distribution, and it's inspiring. And when Ben and I set out to make this podcast, we wanted to make a podcast that we could have accessed 15, 20 years ago when we were getting started, right? Like, how do you find your way in this confusing industry? How do you find your voice as an artist? How do you choose your subjects? And how do you make work that's worth talking about? That's what I want to talk about today. I want to reach out. I made a note when I was watching the film, Reid. You said a couple things in the film that really struck me, but you said something that I wanted to lead with. You said, disabled people aren't threatened by our bodies. We're threatened by other people's bodies. Talk to me a little bit about that. That's the thesis of this film.
Yeah, for 4 decades, disabled people haven't said this word. The invention of the concepts of the social model versus the medical model. Medical model says disability is individual and it's a medical deficit. Social model says that society creates disability, but not accommodating people with the different bodies. So I think I was alluded to that in this film. I mean, it's clear that non-disabled bodies are purposely killing disabled bodies.
Yeah. And that is something that, like I said, I didn't know about. And I didn't really know where you were taking the story as it went. It really unfolds in a way that kind of, when made the medical assistance in death,
In dying, yeah.
in dying subplot in Canada was first kind of introduced. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel about that. And I mean, I love a film that kind of like puts me into the shoes of the filmmaker and into the shoes of the subject and forces me to make some decisions for myself. And this was one of those ones that certainly does that, because this is all new to me. I know it's not new to you. Colleen, was this new to you, or is this something that you had been aware of before Reid brought it to Multitude?
It's totally new. And that's part of the reason I wanted to work with Reid and to make this film, was because of the sort of personal and political education transformation that I had just by coming to understand the layers that are at play in these issues. I, like many progressives, thought that assisted dying was an issue simply of personal autonomy, bodily autonomy, and choice. And I came to understand it's much more complicated than that when you take into account all of the ways that society strips us of choice, whether through ableism, deep-seated ableism and fear of disability, loathing of disability even, let alone racism, capitalism, the way that we are denied, that marginalized communities are denied the means to thrive in our society. And so it's much more complicated when you bring disability into the picture. So I certainly had a huge perspective shift that I saw an opportunity for audiences to have. And it's really exciting when you make a documentary and there's an opportunity to not just preach to the choir, but to like be in dialogue with with your audience. And the film does not pose easy answers.
Yeah.
Some of we've gotten some responses that are like, this film powerfully impacted me, and yet I'm sitting here trying to figure out what to do with it all.
Yeah.
And there are, many concrete things we can do around insisting and continuing to make demands on the state to like improve society and improve our systems of care and all of this. But one impact I hope the film makes on a very foundational level is just for non-disabled audiences to have their idea of what disability means reframed, and to see to unpack the very deep-seated biases we have around it, which are so often just, it's like the water we're swimming in. So
Reid, I'm curious about you taking a film like this to a production company. And like Colleen said, this is all new to her. For me, it was new to me. And I feel like so much of film storytelling is about seeing a character transform. I felt like as I was watching it, the character that was transforming was me, because I was here, I was there. You introduce, I think, 4 distinct voices, kind of case studies, but much more personal than that. The historic story and kind of what gets us going, which is Elizabeth Bouvet, the local to Austin story of Michael Hickson, and there's a gentleman named Michael in Canada.
You have Jerica Baldwin as well.
Yes.
Although we did interview anyone connected to the story, we did tell the story through archival.
Yeah.
and then there's the Canadian storyline.
Kind of the storyline of the governmental shift or the policy there. For you, did you experience a change at all in the process of making the film?
Yes and no. I would say yes because I would say no because this tension between progressive values and this perspective is really what made me interested in the story. I was in the Bay Area. I was part of this so much radical disability community, wildly progressive, and yet many of them were adamantly against assisted suicide. And I read the reasoning, and it made sense. And so I thought there was a concept there, but I didn't have a story. And that's what I felt Bouvet, and that's what I felt all these stories echoing Bouvet, that I could really tell this tale of political complacency when it comes to disability, that progressives are following the script and unsurprisingly forgetting this disabled, or not knowing this disabled perspective.
That's wild. You're in a community that, of course, has thousands of perspectives that come into, conversation. And so parsing those perspectives for yourself in the early stages of this is what gets you going. Of course, we're talking, I know most of the people that are listening to this probably haven't had a chance to see the film yet. I hope they will run out and see it and certainly catch it on Independent Lens. But so to give a quick rundown, this is a film that primarily deals with the question of assisted suicide within the world of disability communities and how different people feel about that. People that are kind of, the story of Michael Hickson is one of the ones that really spoke to me, because this is a family that's kind of thrown into a situation after a traumatic car accident, and Michael Hickson's family.
Sorry, it wasn't a car. The injury caused a car accident.
Okay, he had a heart attack while driving.
He went into cardiac arrest or traffic.
Gotcha. But so this is a family that's like forced to kind of confront this massive change in the life of the father of that.
Which he did. Which he did in the way that I don't know. That's very rare.
Yeah.
And yet, they need to reimplant acute medical ableism and racism.
Absolutely. And the way that Michael Hickson's wife talks about her situation is just heartbreaking. And on the flip side, then you have somebody like Elizabeth Bouvet, who has a lifetime of figuring out her relationship to cerebral palsy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gets us going on this, is your journey to figure out, one, is she still alive? And two, what she thinks now after having made this big splash. When was that story? When was the Elizabeth?
It first came into in 1983. It was making national news as the as 1986.
Okay. So that's a story. You didn't know that story before getting involved in the community in San Francisco you were talking about?
Correct.
Yeah. And so when you first encountered that footage of her and this kind of battle that she took on, how did you feel about her as a character, and how did you feel about what she wanted?
I thought her case was deep. I don't know what other word to use, but deep. Here was a woman who more or less moved like me in the public eye, and then she's gone.
Yeah.
So a big part of this was erasure for me. And my first film, I talk about the freak show, and I talk about this simultaneity of being hypervisible and invisible at the same time, and doing that was Bouvet. Like, as soon as her cycle was over, she was out, to the point where there were major errors in the Wikipedia. I think I went off topic a little bit. Oh, I don't know. Ryan, I wanted to know more about her. I wanted to figure out as much as one can, because I will never know the truth. I can't project that to anyone. I wanted to find out what experiences led her you want to die at 26 years old so badly that you wanted to go on the national stage.
Yeah. As you kind of confronted the answers to those questions, why she made the decision she did, and you got the insights that you did from the people who shared them, I started out by asking you about transformation, and I guess I'm curious, like, how much, the further you got into it, did you understand her more or did you understand her less?
More.
More.
As I think by 3/4 of the way through production, our thesis was proven.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's take a step back. Colleen, talk to me about the production process with Reid. So I know this concept is something he brought to Multitude and you guys got excited about it. I was surprised when I saw you appear in the film. I love when filmmakers kind of rope those around them into this. Was that Reid's idea to kind of rope you in, and did he pull you in kicking and screaming? Or was it a natural, organic kind of extension of the working relationship that you guys were developing, or how did that come across?
A little bit of both. At first, well, I'll take a step back and start by, like, Reid brought both, of course, the sort of instinct that the heart of the film was potentially Elizabeth Bouvet, and also several other seeds that ended up comprising the bulk of the film, of these contemporary stories that he saw echoes in. And so the biggest challenge was ultimately just like somehow Reid knew exactly what the film would be comprised of, and we just had to figure out how. And it felt like a really hard journey, but it's really remarkable to me, like, thinking back exactly that, like, we had all the pieces, even though we didn't necessarily believe that or know that at the time. We spent the first year and a half just doing really deep research, collecting, reading, writing to each other back and forth, trying to, like, synthesize our own analysis around these issues. And we would go back and forth day and day and say, this is so complicated and complex, and then the next day we'd wake up and realize, wait, actually, it's really simple. People are just dying when they shouldn't be, and that's all you need to know. But then there were these gaps that needed to be filled, sort of these moments of perspective shift in real time, or like the puzzle pieces of, like, the stickiness around the feelings about reevaluating in my case, like, reevaluating our perspective around this issue as we learn more, that we hope that, sort of is mirrored in the audience's journey. We waited to start looking for Bouvet until we were ready to have cameras up, and so that all unfolded in real time. And at first it started up like, oh, it's actually kind of awkward for Reid to just be, like, talking to himself in front of the computer. Yeah. So we sort of,
we know that is what does happen. Other people don't need to see that.
That's right.
So first it was to have a sounding board, a bouncing board to have to sort of play out in the investigative strand. And then when we had our first edit retreat with Don Bernier, our fantastic editor, he sits down and he's like, so is this a buddy film? So it's really due to Don that I continued to sort of be in the scenes that we filmed. And we hope we've gotten some feedback that it feels really useful from an audience member's perspective. And I think for me, at least, especially one of the most powerful scenes is when Reid is filling out the MAID application himself and going through the process. And that was such a stunning moment to live, and just to have that conversation together and to just articulate out loud, wow, like, Reid would be eligible for MAID, I wouldn't, but we're articulating to ourselves the same reasons that we might want to, the same reasons that we might be faced with suicidal ideations in our own life are similar. It doesn't have to do with disability, and yet the only disabled person in the room would be eligible for assisted dying.
Yeah. I mean, what came across to me about the scenes about suicide, we're talking about people who feel out of options. And that's
not metaphorical. That's not real.
That's right. It's like legitimate, like real.
Literally, street institution or death.
Yeah. That scene where you're filling out that form felt metaphorically almost like sharpening a blade. like walking along a ledge, like that felt like just engaging with that question so hands-on with, you know, a mouse click and you're initializing the form. It was almost like, don't hit send, because if you do, anything, like the walls could come down all around us. That's how it felt.
Don't come down.
That's right. Talk to me about your role as a filmmaker, because this is not your first rodeo. You know, I know that your previous film, you have 2 like back-to-back wins at Sundance. Both films focus on disability stories. This film is personal in the sense that you are in there, you speak your mind, you share your perspective with the audience, but it is not personal in the sense that this is your story in a nuts and bolts. How do you approach filmmaking from like a technical, creative, aesthetic point of view? Like where do you take inspiration? What are the films and the filmmakers that turned you on?
Sure. So I think this may be a bit adjacent to your point, but I think it's very illustrative. I came into grad school with the film about wheelchair access in Europe, and I came in determined not to be the disabled filmmaker, determined not to be the guy that makes films only about his identity. And you made 4 films. And my first film was about a water witch and the drought in California. It was the worst film I've ever made.
Okay.
And the next 3 were all about disability. I remember talking to my professor about this insecurity about how is this interest in disability narcissistic or just one dimension as me. And she said, well, what about Marlon Riggs? Do you think he's one-dimensional or narcissistic? Marlon Riggs is one of my favorite filmmakers. So from that point on, I was very comfortable in really diving into the politics of disability. I mean, favorite filmmakers, that is a tough question. But what I will say is that my favorite films are those that do present ambiguity, that make you reach, that isn't necessarily validating your point, but really trying to make you work for ages.
Yeah, I appreciate that so intensely, because like I said, the way that the feelings that I had today, I started out ready to jump in to kind of follow where you were going, and then you challenged me with different characters. You challenged me with direct address. Some of the things you said you made another comment in there I wrote down, and I don't usually, to be honest with you, I don't usually write things down in preparation for these talks, but honestly, your film made me think, I would say, more than the average film does about stuff that I don't contend with much. And I have friends with disabilities. I've made multiple films in different disability communities. I stopped making films with a recognition that there were filmmakers like you who had a point of view that I couldn't bring to bear. And I go back and forth on how I feel about that, like whether, and I still don't know the answer for me, and I've decided it's only for me to decide, so I'm not going to ask you.
I agree with that.
Thank you. But this is what you said. You said this film is not about suicide. It's about the phenomenon that leaves people desperate to find their place in the world that perpetually rejects them. And as much as that nails what this film is about, it also, in a metaphorical way, nails indie filmmaking, right? Perpetual rejection is the world that we have signed up for. And yet we all wake up one way or another every day and decide to take on the seemingly impossible of making something out of nothing, of trying to get 100 people to show up to a dark room and watch up the light on the wall. And I'll bring this back around to you. which is this question of identity and how you feel about being the disability filmmaker, in your own words. I'm sure it's an evolving question. You said to me downstairs, evolve or die. What do you see the next 4 films?
By the way, now I consider Charles Darwin. Darwin was an ableist.
Among other things. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. What's your next film? Is that what you got?
Well, I'm curious about your next film, but I'm more curious about like the arc of your career and the fact that you've made 3 disability films, all different, all giving you an opportunity to grow as a storyteller and to talk to audiences in a different way. What do you see the next 3 or 4 films for you as a filmmaker?
Yeah, there are still disability stories that aren't being told.
For sure.
Because that's what I like really vitally important thing for how we view society, stories that are still not being picked up. So that's where I will live.
Yeah. All right. Well, you keep making and we'll keep showing up for them. Because I have plenty to learn. And you're a great filmmaker. You're a great storyteller. The way you interweave these stories kept me on my toes and made me want to know what happened. I'm not going to tell you what happened. You guys are going to have to watch the film. Colleen, same question for you. Who are the filmmakers that inspired you? What's the gateway drug film that turned you from who you were to who you are?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is so embarrassing. Should I tell the story?
Here makes the story. Yeah.
Laura Poitras moderated our opening night Q&A at Film Forum, and I was in a puddle of admiration and awe because she was one of the first filmmakers I really fell in love with. And, I didn't study documentary film, but she was my gateway drug. And the reason I was drawn to documentary is a form of art and politics. And so I really admire filmmakers like Brett Story, who does the same. It's really, for me, all about weaving our political commitments into an art form. And often that doesn't, I don't mind a beautiful propaganda film for leftist propaganda film once in a while, but I also love the films that leave us with ambiguity and sort of demand that the audience sign up to contribute to finding the answer, whether that's for themselves or more broadly in a general sense as we move forward. So those are some of my great loves.
This is a great answer. For me, when I was getting started, I got really great advice from a filmmaker, a woman named Lisa McWilliams here in town, who told me to go to Hot Docs and watch the pitch forum there. And that I did. This was way back in 2004. And Laura Poitras, I met 2 kind of pivotal people who planted different seeds of advice in my ear at that Hot Docs. I met Laura Poitras, who was just on the heels of Flag Wars and was really, at the beginning of a career that who would have known where she would have gone, but she was, she had planted that flag. She was going places, but she was really warm and generous. And we spent just 15 or 20 minutes.
Still that warm and that generous.
Well, I haven't seen her since then, so I hope maybe I forget her on Hero these days. Okay. I met Albert Maysles that same day. And honestly, I didn't get an earful of advice from Albert, but just kind of being near him was, basked in the glow of, 50 years of incredible cinema verite. So I'll double on that. Who are some filmmakers that you've sought mentorship from or that you've connected with that have inspired you on a one-to-one basis?
Well, Jason Osler, he made Let the Fire Burn.
Oh yeah, Colleen Films.
Yeah, he was my professor at George Washington University. Right when that film came out, at least the reason I became a documentary filmmaker. Yeah. I know him, but I swear to God, if I didn't know him, it would still be one of my top 5 films. It was a jaw-dropping to know Jason for so long and then all for a year, and then to see this phenomenal film he made. It was like, oh yeah, how can I do this?
Awesome. Colleen, same question.
I mean, I really came up in this industry under the wing of Jess Devaney, the founder of Multitude. I reached out to her just as I was getting my footing in New York, and I was so lucky that when I reached out to her, she needed help building this company. And so it's been the privilege of a lifetime to get to build that with her. But I've worked with Brett Story and have benefited from her deep wisdom on another film I'm producing outside of Multitude. She's an executive producer on, and I'm endlessly grateful to her. And then there are also other producers I really admire, like Sarah Archambault and Danielle Varga, who have bodies of work just like any director does, and you can trace the through lines and you can feel their imprint on them in really admirable ways. And I hope that one day I'll have a body of work that sort of can track my own sort of interests and contributions to a particular set of themes.
Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the point you're making about producers. I work with a producer, Megan Gilbride, who I'm super close with, and that's how I know Jess, is through Megan. And we don't know each other well, but we've kind of stood in line at parties at Sundance, and we've shared drinks. I was there when she was pitching Megan on the Documentary Producers Alliance. And so I feel like producers don't get their due. I love talking with filmmakers of kind of every angle, but I especially love people who work in a collaboration that like 1 + 1 = 3. And that, sometimes you watch a film and you don't know where the director begins and where the director ends and the editor begins, or all the contributions that a producer made kind of behind the scenes. But this is one of those films, like, you pulled a nice little magic trick of like putting this collaboration front and center in the film and kind of letting us see, and the kind of warmth and camaraderie that you guys share come across there. It comes across here. But we started out by talking about the industry and kind of it's in the dumps, so I won't bug us with more. No, unfortunately it is the answer, right? That's the thing, is we do this. Ben and I do this. We've had these conversations. This is going to be our 19th or 20th episode, and every filmmaker we talk to, we ask about the industry, because honestly, I just keep hoping somebody's going to give me like the secret key.
But maybe one thing is that they are trying to or defund public television for a reason. It's because of our power. And if we can measure that power and still keep telling our stories, we won't go away.
I take inspiration from that, and that's
I'll add one more thing, which is like I was just at Art House Convergence in Chicago, which is a gathering for exhibitors and distributors. But I've gone there for the past couple of years as a producer moving into distribution, and I think that there's a lot we can do to work across different sectors of the industry to help harness audiences for the work that we want to keep having audiences for, and to fill up these theaters. And I also think that filmmakers and producers and directors alike, but we know our audiences best, and we know who we're making our films for, or we should. And I think we're trying to prove right now to ourselves that it's possible to distribute our films ourselves and find our audiences. And distribution is also can be really creative and an extension of the process of making the film, particularly for films that are rooted in communities and movements, and to bring those folks into the world of film as audience members, and then to enlist them in the pre-existing networks for distribution that aren't the mass airwaves or the streamers. Like there really are routes, and in many ways this is back to basics, getting back to basics and relearning some of what our the people who came before us know very well, and figuring out how to do that in our context. But I'm feeling also very energized at the same time that it's frightening, and I don't know if we'll be around in a year, but if we can make it through, I think we'll learn a lot in the process, connect more deeply, have more control, have more information, and hopefully build something that is longer lasting, instead of just relying on Netflix or even PBS to anoint us with the avenues that we're looking for. We can build them ourselves.
I love your sentiment that we have the power, and that's our voices that they're trying to shut down, and what you're saying about taking it back to this kind of grassroots, do-it-yourself kind of ethos that you start out with as an emerging filmmaker. We all kind of hope to leave in the dust and be in the situation where the people just take up our films and run and sprinkle them all over the world and sprinkle us with money. But
when does that happen? Yeah, I'm weird.
That'll only ever happen for a few people.
yeah, that's exactly. But this is a good place to kind of wrap up. Like I said, Ben and I, we started out to make this so that emerging filmmakers would have a place to kind of find access to people like you guys and to learn what we've been learning is hard won in this industry. What practical advice do you have for emerging filmmakers? And I'd ask you, Colleen, kind of to follow up on what you were just saying, like, that sounds awesome, right? Go to the Convergence, get out there, get your production company to go book 10 cities. How do you do that if you're, you know, a 26-year-old with their very first film under their arm, no relationships, no knowledge to build on? Do you have any like breadcrumbs you can offer?
I mean, just in terms of the nuts and bolts, like, Google is very powerful. Like, you don't, you know, in many ways, our relationship is about, our industry is about building solid and meaningful relationships to grow. But in other ways, I didn't know anything about booking a theatrical release. I literally just looked it up. I found one person to, Toby, at the Nashville Film Society, who taught me how theatrical works, and I just experimented and did it and found a bunch of email addresses and see what stuck. So it's that kind of just like initiative.
And that's this 10 city story you're talking about.
It was the first time I did it a couple of years ago, which was the dry run, and now I'm building from a place of I do have those, you know, these relationships, and never gotten to bring them to bear. But I think the key thing, and this is like something any producer will tell you, is that you have to know who you're making your film for, and you can't just assume the audience will your audience will find your film. You have to make that connection for them and expect to be doing that work after you make the film. So don't get burnt out, and have a sense of the long tail end when you start as much as is possible. It's hard to have that foresight when it's your first film, but hopefully listening to this podcast you'll get a sense of how important that is.
Well, let's not put that much pressure on the podcast. But you guys have a lot to share. Reid, final thought, what advice do you have, practical nuts and bolts for a young emerging filmmaker, or one like me?
Follow your gut. Don't try to make a film. Don't try to make a film. If you find the right story, you will have to make that film. There will be this sense of loneliness to make a film. And it'll just happen.
I will tell you, that sounds like bullshit, but I know exactly what you mean, because like that is how I felt watching your film. It's like, God, I need to get out there. I need to get a camera, and it's not, well, I know you did well with these little rinky-dink guys, but watching a film like yours is exactly the thing that kind of gets me up and going and says, oh, I need to be out there, kind of like finding the story that builds that sense of longing for me, because I want to connect with an audience the way that you connected with me today. And so I didn't mean to say if I sounded like bullshit. It's
Happen.
It just happens. But I know he's up. No, but you know, the thing is, the people listening who understand that feeling, those are the real filmmakers, right? Those are the people who get, like, follow your gut. You know, doesn't mean like go left or right at a fork in the road. It means you're literally drawn forward by the need, by the hunger to get out and say something, or to meet people, or to find a connection. So anyway, I'm going to leave our conversation inspired. I can't wait for the film to go wide on Indie Lens.
And you can catch virtual screenings throughout the rest of the summer.
What does that mean, virtual screenings?
So you can go to lifeafterfilm.com/screenings, and you'll see a list of our in-person screenings and our virtual screenings, which are hosted on Gather, but run by us. Yeah.
Once again, that's lifeafterfilm.com/screeners.
You guys are good. You're listening to Doc Walks. And, man, let's take a page out of these two books.
Sponsored by Light Dot.
We are taking sponsorship. Guys, it's been a super pleasure. Can I go buy you guys a drink? Yeah.
All right, back to the lobby. We'll see you guys next time on Doc.
So that was Reid and Colleen with you at the AFS Cinema. I, again, am super jealous that I missed that one. The film is beautiful, and it's a topic that I haven't honestly thought that much about, and I'm really grateful that I got to think more about it through this film.
Yeah, this Life After does, we talk about it obviously, but it does some of the things that you want out of the greatest documentary films, which is it makes you think about something, think about people, put yourself in the shoes of folks that maybe you've never done before. And for me, that's certainly the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did a great job without me.
Thank you.
Although it would have been better if I
It was
there.
hard. It was hard. I didn't, I had a lot to carry on my shoulders. But thankfully, Reid and Colleen really did a lot of the heavy lifting for us.
They really did. So thank you to Reid and Colleen for being our guests. And
thank you to the Austin Film Society. Thank you to Lars and to Cody over there who accommodated our needs both in the lobby and in the green room.
Awesome. Thanks, Lars. Thanks, Cody.
Thanks, Sharon at Austin Film Society who helped set up the introduction to Colleen.
Yeah. And next week, you and I are doing a walk
It's
solo.
just the two of us. Yeah, we're I've been missing you.
Oh,
Because you weren't here this week, and so we have some catching up to do.
We do.
We have some looking back, some looking forward.
Fall is in the air. We talk about this time of the year, what that means for documentaries, for production, for our projects, and we hope you'll join us.
We'll see you next week. Doc Walks is created, produced, and edited by my friend Ben Steinbauer of The Bear.
Hello. And my friend Keith Maitland of Go Valley.
Thanks for tuning in.
Follow us at DocWalksPod on Instagram, X, and YouTube.